It's Matt Barrie with ESPN on 104.5 The Team, your home for New York sports. Matt, of course, is the host for College Gameday Radio and also for SportsCenter as well. And Matt, man, thanks for joining us as always. And the first thing, Ohio State jumps TCU, gets into the top four. Was that the right move by the selection committee?
Yeah, it was the right move. And I know there's been a lot of chatter and discrepancy and controversy in the state of Texas about TCU and Baylor being left out of the 14 playoff. But, guys, we hear this term all the time. We heard it all year during college football when the committee released their rankings. We kept hearing body of work. And the body of work at this point leans towards Ohio State. If you look at the final rankings, the top 25 put out by the College Football Playoff Committee, Ohio State had 3 wins against ranked teams that ended up being ranked. Baylor had 2. It was against TCU and Kansas State. And TCU had 2. And their wins against ranked teams were Minnesota and Kansas State. So if you just look at body of work towards the end of the season, that 13th game for Ohio State in the Big Ten Championship against a ranked Wisconsin team in dominating fashion ultimately is what made their resume better than both Baylor and TCU, who only played 12 games.
Now, Matt, the small, low murmur out there is that the committee may have taken ratings into to contemplation when putting this together. Do you see that at all?
No, that's garbage. I mean, look, everybody is going to have a problem with the rankings if their team got left out. And then inherently, if you have a problem with your team being left out, then you're going to start trying to search for reasons of why your team was left out. And then who are you going to blame? You're going to blame ESPN because there's some grand conspiracy to get Ohio State in the playoff. If Ohio State loses that game or if Florida State loses their game, if there's one upset on championship weekend, Baylor gets in. Fact of the matter is there weren't any upsets. Every team won that needed to win. And if you just look at just look at body of work. The Big Ten has more ranked teams than the Big 12. I mean, it is what it is. So for the people to come out and get all fired up about it, I love it. And that's why I love college football. But to sit there and think that there's this grand conspiracy theory is just garbage. I mean, the Big Ten's got 4 ranked teams: Ohio State, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Minnesota. The Big 12 has 3: Baylor, TCU, Kansas State. It played itself out the way it should have.
College Gameday and SportsCenter host Matt Barrie with Armen Levack on 104.5 The Team. Matt, the week-by-week drama of this thing, you and your College Gameday crew here on ESPN Radio, you completely analyze that to the bone every single weekend. In its an inaugural year of this selection committee process, what did you see? What stood out to you the most in a week-by-week and now that we have the final 14 playoff?
All right. I mean, if we're going to critique anything the playoff committee did, we can take a look at the week-by-week rankings. And I know I felt strongly that perhaps the committee should have done a better job looking ahead. Because if they did a better job of looking ahead, there's no way they would have put TCU third. To me, that was the biggest issue. You put TCU third, and I know they came out, and Jeff Long would come out weekly and say, this is how we see it right now. This is how it exists. If the playoff ended today, or if the season ended today, this is how the playoff would look. But if they look forward, guys, they would have seen that TCU was going to play Iowa State, and we knew what TCU was going to do to Iowa State. And so for me, it made it look almost like they were trolling TCU, because my first thought, and Armen, I'm still having conversations with people in the DFW area because I live there, and the common thought was, oh my gosh, TCU is in. Now, it's a new system, and the committee wanted to put out there that they were going to be different than the AP poll and the BCS rankings, where if you win, it stays status quo. And they wanted to put out the message that that's not going to be the case with the playoff committee. Having said that, if they wanted to make that case, they could have easily put TCU fourth. Put TCU fourth the week before the final rankings, and then if you leapfrog Ohio State in, and then Baylor beats a top 10 team in Kansas State, and then because of the head-to-head leapfrogs TCU, I don't think we're having as big of an issue of this week. The issue is that people have is that TCU was third, and they dropped to sixth. Having said all of that, gentlemen, it is crystal clear to me, barring two upsets, TCU was never getting in anyway because they were leapfrogged by Baylor. And so the issue isn't TCU because it looks like they weren't going to get in anyway. The issue would have been Baylor hanging out behind TCU for so long, even though they had that head-to-head matchup.
Matt Barrie of College Game Day on ESPN Radio with Armen Levack on the team.
Matt, you've got your finger on the pulse of the college football world. The big job open out there is University of Michigan. Where do you see them going?
You know, I've talked to, we have a lot of people that have Michigan ties at ESPN, and I know and I respect and I expect them to go hard for Jim Harbaugh. Why wouldn't they? But if you take a look at where Jim Harbaugh is in his career, he's at the height of his powers in the NFL. He's been to 3 straight NFC championship games. He almost won a Super Bowl. Coaches very rarely, if ever, go from the height of their career in the NFL to go back to college. He used college as a stepping stone to get to the pinnacle of his career. Pete Carroll went to USC because he had marginal NFL success. No one wanted him as a head coach in the NFL, and he had to go to college to rehabilitate his career. It very rarely goes the other way. Jim Harbaugh had a brilliant career at Michigan under Bo Schembechler in the late 80s. No one's denying that. And the tug and the pull that it has on you for the rest of your life, none of us will ever understand that. What we do understand in a profession like the NFL, coaches are very aspirational, and they have that next thing to prove. I'd be shocked if Jim Harbaugh went back to Michigan. The guy that I think that would be the perfect hire for this program is a guy like Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen made Mississippi State a winner. Dan Mullen could lead Mississippi State to an 11-win season. Dan Mullen is also one season removed from 2013 from possibly being run out of Starkville because he wasn't able to win the big game. And so if I'm Mullen, I take a look at Dak Prescott, some of the guys that I'm losing on that, on the defensive side of the ball, and the offensive side of the ball, and say, hey, look, you know what? This may be as good as it's going to get. Dan Mullen in Michigan, for me, would be a perfect fit for that program going forward.
Nice.
It's Matt Barrie with Armen Levack. You see him on SportsCenter, College Game Day host as well. And Matt will be hosting the Heisman Trophy ceremony 7 o'clock this Saturday right here on 104.5 The Team from 7 to 10. And Barrie, tell us, man, who is going to win the Heisman on Saturday night? What do you think?
This thing's over. It's Marcus Mariota. I mean, he's had a remarkable career. Amari Cooper, phenomenal player. Melvin Gordon, phenomenal player. They just happen to be great players in the wrong year. It's funny because when you look at the Heisman ballots when they come out on Saturday, I really believe people think, you know, Mariota, Gordon, Cooper, that's going to be the finish because that's just what we all have believed because of Gordon's remarkable year. But don't be surprised if Mariota, he's going to win. Don't be surprised if Cooper doesn't finish second. He's had a great year in Alabama. Some of our NFL guys in Bristol at ESPN think that he's one of the greatest receivers we've ever seen come out of college. And that includes a freak like Julio Jones that was at Alabama not too long ago. And so, Mario, it's his award to lose. Mariota's going to be the guy. And that sets up a great matchup with last year's Heisman Trophy winner Jameis Winston and two of the great quarterbacks in college football going head-to-head in the playoff game.
Matt Barrie with Armen Levack on 104.5 The Team. Matt, we'll keep an eye out for you on SportsCenter this week. You'll be all over the Sugar Bowl coverage for College Game Day right here on 104.5 The Team and, of course, at the National Championship at Cowboy Stadium as well. Dude, as always, man, greatly appreciate your time. Thanks so much for talking to us today.
Gentlemen, appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the NFL season as well.